Can do that. Thank you. And on this graph, then, can you tell me where it is, indicate with the pointer, if you could, where it is when Dr. Murray administers 25 milligrams of propofol to Michael Jackson?
It would be, well, it's just 11, so it'd be right around in this range.
Indicating about what time?
About 10:40, 10:45.
Thank you.
And the approximate location where it is when you put forward that Michael Jackson administered himself 25 milligrams.
Just before and shortly before noon.
And would you agree that the lorazepam levels, based on the model you've testified to, would actually be lower than at the time that you theorized Michael Jackson self-ingested than they were at the time Conrad Murray injected 25 milligrams of propofol?
They, on this model, they'd be slightly lower, yes.
I have a one-page graph highlighting that point, Your Honor. May this be marked Peoples 243 for identification?
Yes.
Dr. Schaefer, showing you Peoples 243.
White.
I'm sorry, Dr. White. Showing you Peoples 243. Again, does this highlight the point you just made, showing the lorazepam level at 1040 and then being lower at 1140 based on the arrows and the time references?
Yes, on this model, which we've discussed previously, there's a huge degree of variability, so I would not put, I think those numbers are probably insignificantly different. And the time, as I said, that the second one was administered may not be totally accurate, but with those caveats, I would say yes.
You disagree with the model that you testified about regarding time of self-administration, correct?
I don't disagree with the model. I think the models, I think the time of the bolus dose may be displaced relative to the time Mr. Jackson was found dead.
Do you have an exhibit up there still, Dr. White?
I believe you left the exhibit that Dr. Ornelas generated. Thank you for the two boluses.
Looking at defense quadruple B, Dr. Schaefer's simulations contain the effect site. You testified, I believe, last week regarding the effect sites. Where is the effect site shown on defense quadruple V?
I don't see the effect site shown. I do not see it on this diagram.
Does propofol act in the blood or in the brain?
Well, it depends on the actions you're referring to in terms of effects on the central nervous system. It's obviously on the brain. On the cardiovascular system, such as the heart, it's obviously in the heart.
And do you know why then this does not show the effect site? Was that a request of yours, or is that something, again, Dr. Ornelas did on her own?
She did this on her own. As I explained to you, I asked her a very simple question, and she provided me with these graphs. I only asked her about how much free propofol you would expect in the urine after 2 bolus doses compared to giving a 1,000 milligram infusion. I did not ask her to model theoretical effect site concentrations or any other parameters.
Here I have an exhibit showing both the brain and plasma levels. May this be marked Peoples 244 for identification?
Yes.
Dr. White, based on the computer code you provided, Dr. Schaefer created a simulation showing the effect site, and I want you to know, I want to ask if you have any, if you take any issue with this diagram. It reflects both the plasma and the brain levels or effect site levels. Can you see that from where you're seated?
Yes, I can see it. I think I have tried to make the point that this effect site, which does not reflect any actual quantifiable measurements, is totally theoretical, is subject to huge interpatient variability, and so I don't put a great deal of value in those numbers. I'm sorry.
So did you ask Dr. Ornelas not to include the effect site?
I absolutely did not. I'll repeat again if you would like what I asked Dr. Ornelas. It was very simple. How much free propofol was in the urine? What would you expect to find in the urine? And what was actually measured in the urine at the time of autopsy, given that there was 550 mLs of urine and the concentration was as reported in the coroner report. That was all I asked Dr. Ornelas to do.
Would you agree in Peoples 244, I understand you've qualified your answer, but in Peoples 244, would you agree that the effect site on the brain, the difference in levels is trivial, basically 1.4 compared to 1.7?
I think I've said before, these numbers are meaningless to me. They have no clinical relevance, and they're subject to huge variability. I'm more interested at the concentration in the heart, which is what I think is the site of the event that led to Mr. Jackson's death.
Well, not in your March 8th report, you're saying that now.
My March 8th letter, which was, as I've said earlier, merely a preliminary evaluation based on very early materials, including numerous expert reports by the prosecution and the autopsy materials and some other documentation.
Your Honor, is this a good time?
Are you asking?
Yes.
Hopefully it is for the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take the mid-afternoon break. Please